Hey guys, Happy New Year. Welcome back. It's Chris here from New Zealand, and we're going to be looking at the first episode of Top Stocks for 2021. I hope it's been a great festive season for you. Trading has been exciting, and we're going to look at a few things, and I've got some things to show you. First of all, MI Pro, the software that I develop and use for my stock planning strategies, has been updated significantly during the break, so I've been away for a while in terms of my online publications, but it doesn't mean I haven't been busy. I've been super busy redesigning the UI, adding awesome new features for stock price prediction, and a whole bunch more which you'll see as we go along. So for those of you who don't know, I use technical analysis for day trading and sometimes intraday trading and sometimes swing trading to help me predict stock prices so that I can do multiple trades on a monthly basis and win more than 50% of them. While I'm doing that, I set up a target price and a stop loss of 2R and 1R respectively. My stop loss at 1R, which is at this stage set at a value of you can see it here, 0.25 of my total cash value, which equates to a number of about $283 and some odd cents. And then the win is double that. So this means if I do 20 or 30 trades a month and I win 50% of them and I lose 50% of them, I still make a profit, right? But we try and do better than just 50%, okay? We try and do at least 70% wins. And if we look at October, for instance, oops, I need to just pop over to my portfolio. One second. So when we look at October, we can see it's been a great month, right? All these green lights means wins and the red ones losses. Now, losses are fine. It's the cost of doing business, but we try and minimize them where we can. So if we look at 2012, the 12th month, December, then you'll see we had quite a bit more losses than wins. It was actually quite a tough month, really. I fine-tuned my software. I had to redesign some of my strategies or reevaluate some of my strategies and adjust some of my target prices and some of the stop loss values on certain things and how I approach them. You also notice I've only done manual trades in December, except for the last bit I started using my machine learning algorithms again. That's because I've introduced a new machine learning algorithm or library, at least. It's the Microsoft ML.NET libraries. They're a lot faster than the previous Python ones that I used, and it's a lot more controllable and scalable. So I had a lot more the ability to adjust it a lot more and customize it a lot more. So now I could control the information that goes in and process the data that comes out better, which means it's a lot more manageable and a lot more realistic. Now I've started a new portfolio for January, since we're in January, so currently there's blank. We didn't have any stocks brought over. I cleared out and closed off all of them last month, last year, December. So it means that we've got a blank fresh portfolio to start off with. Okay dokie. So before we start with anything, let's just before we look at the new stocks, let's look at the one we've got on the list. And before we do that, let's just have a look at what the sectors are doing. So I'm here in FinViz, and I'm going to head over to groups, and thank you for the ads. And then I'm going to look at where the various industries and sectors are heading currently. So we can see utilities here on the 1 day relative performance going quite high, on the 1 week also number one. So that's interesting, utilities. Okay, financial second, real estate third, and we've got financial second excuse me, here on the 1 week as well, while we've still got technology at a second spot in the 1 month overall performance. So there's been a little bit of a dip in the technology and a pickup in utilities and financial compared to the longer cycle. So if we have a look here at energy, for instance, or if we look at utilities, we can click on it and we can see how that is performing against the S&P 500. So I'll just click on that and give it a second to load. So the black line here is the S&P 500, and we've got utilities here as this orange line. So not outperforming the S&P 500 really. So if we look at where is technologies? Great, no, I'm not going to find it. There we go. So if we look at technology, and we compare that to the S&P 500, we can see it is outperforming. So technology still outperforming the S&P 500, still a good industry to be in. I also want to look at health. So let's look at the health sector. I should memorize these things. And then we'll look at financials as well. So let's just see here. We've got, no, real estate, financials, healthcare. There we go. Don't know why I struggle to find them every time. Not performing too bad, but we can see it's not at the current moment outperforming the S&P 500 either. Okay, and the final one that we wanted to check was financial. Alright, so let's look at the financial sector here, and we can see it's underperforming quite a bit. Right, so that gives us an idea, and you know, we want to look at certain things. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button there. Let's just close that. We want to be looking at certain things like the industry that we're buying into, because I've mentioned this before. The odds of a stock belonging to a certain industry to follow that industry trend is about 75%, right? So if the industry is not performing well, the chances are that that stock might also not be faring well. It's not cast in stone. It's a rule of thumb. So you know, take it with a pinch of salt. All right. So Boeing, the company. So let's look at the current indicators for Boeing. So you'll notice I've added some UI changes, and as we go along, you'll see what it looks like. I think it looks a lot better now. We've given the software a bit of a facelift, so I'm quite happy with that. Now you can see here we pick up patterns automatically, and we can see from the candle chart there's been a bullish pattern picked up on the 30th, and obviously the 31st would have been the confirmation candle of that, which turned out not to be, but it means that it could mean that it could follow, right? It's very possible. On the stochastics, we can see it's dipped below that bottom line here at a level of 30, which means it's currently oversold. So this is when we want to buy, but we would want to see it turn back up before we actually buy and hit that line again, preferably. The MACD is still bullish, but notice how close it is, this blue line, to the signal line, and that is quite dangerous, because if we do have a crossover and it's within the past 5 trading days, then you know that is a no-go in my trading approach. And we can see here there's an imminent intersection there. The chances of that bouncing back up with everything going on in the world with coronavirus is highly likely. And we can also see here the average true range. This is just the volatility on a daily basis. That has also dropped a bit. Doesn't mean much, but on the RSI we can see the relative strength index. We can see that it has been trending here at the stop line for quite a bit, very bullish, right? Excuse me, it's not COVID. And then we can see it's dropped down a little bit to this midline here, which very often acts as a support or a resistance, but it's actually gone just below that line, and that to me is a bit dangerous. It means we could be seeing a trend on this midline for quite some time, which means if we buy into this, we might get stuck with invested stock for quite a long time. So I'm going to unmark that, and I'm going to remove Boeing. I've watched it for a bit, but I'm happy that I'm not going to buy into it. I'm also going to remove this Pfizer, because I'm not going to buy that again anytime soon. Right, let's get into it. So we've got Chewy here. This is one that I ran through my stock finder. So in my stock finder, I can just recall my previous searches. So I run these searches and I add stocks then to the watch list if they meet my criteria, and this was the last scan I ran. It saves those scans, and then I can just recall it at any point. You'll see Chewy is not in there because that was on the 30th. On the 31st I ran it again, and that's the one you currently see. Okay, so what happened with Chewy? So let's go to the indicators. Righty, so first of all, the sector that we're in here is consumer services. We can see here at the top there's so this picks up support / resistances automatically, these dotted red lines, which is very convenient. And we can see that there is a resistance there at the top that's been tested twice. And we're back onto the EMA 18 here. We can see that there was a bullish pattern picked up on the 30th, that doji candle. Again, the 31st kind of debunked it, but it was a special day, right? So we don't expect trading to be as it is every other day. We can see that it's been trending good on the RSI, dropped down a bit. Now it would either bounce off of that midline there at 50, or it could dip below. We don't know. But we can see that the ADX is strong. So it's not very strong, but it is strong. And we can see that it is definitely a trending stock. So with all of that in mind, my swing decision will lie with the prediction module that I've got here, and I'm happy to show this to you, so it's quite exciting. What this does is it loads in the last close price. We want to get the current market price, right? Because that makes a difference. And we're going to hit predict. When it runs, you'll see it runs 10 iterations. You can set it up in your settings because it will always get ballpark values, right? It's not an exact science. We don't really have a crystal ball. So it will run through, and it will from the number of iterations that it runs, it'll take the minimum and the maximum, and it'll show us the low end and high end predictions, and we can then straight out turn that into a trade. Okay, so everything links together quite nicely, and I'm quite excited about this because it's quite cool. I've run a few test trades and I've actually made some money. I bought Apple a while ago based off this, and I bought ANET, and I bought Fiverr. I lost a bit on Fiverr, but I made money on Apple, and I made money on ANET, which was great. So we've got an R squared value here, which is basically just a indicator of how confident the prediction library or system is with its own predictions. And you can see here a value between 0 and 1 is what you'll get. Closer to 1 is better. We're quite close to that, so it says it's very confident. And the same with RMS. It's just another indicator telling us the confidence levels of the prediction, right? So it does 10 years back history if it can find it. If it can't find it, it will use whatever it can as far back as possible, up to 10 years, and it will then run through this, taking a lot of information into account: the previous close, opens, highs, lows, the MACDs. It will look at stochastics as well, and then it would try and project and see where this is going to go based on the current price or open price. Okay, now we can see that the low end here is below our current market price, and we can see that the high end is above that. That to me means, yes, it's a confident result, but it means I'm not confident in trading it because I still don't know if it's going to go up or down. It looks like it's going to kind of trend on the current price as it is. So I'm going to keep it green because I want to see what happens to it, so we can always go back and review and see whether we should have traded that or not. And I'm going to do the rest for the same for the rest of my stocks here that I've got highlighted in green, and then we'll start running through all of these ones here, all the way from Autodesk down to Zscaler, because those are the ones that I've shortlisted. And once I've found the ones that I'm going to buy, I will come back to you and I'll tell you what those are. Alright, see you in a minute. Okay, I thought I'll just quickly pop you back in to the recording because I've been looking at Shopify, which popped up on my list. Let's look at the indicators quickly so I can show you what's going on. We can see that there is a resistance here fairly high up at about $1,285. We don't have any recent candles, but we can see that it's been snapping back to the EMA 18 here. On the stochastics, we can see that it looks like it's about to turn around, but look at that. We had a slight horizontal movement there on the stochastics right at the bottom line at 30, and then it dropped below, and it seems like it's making a comeback, a turnaround. But if we look at the RSI and we look at the ATR, we can see that it is dropping down. So the ADX is quite strong. It is a trending stock at this stage, but when I look at the and I built these buttons in here so I can easily find my hidden windows. Haha. I could also do Alt Tab, of course. But if we look at the prediction, it says very confidently that this price is going to drop, right? It reckons that the predicted close on the low end would be 160 and on the high end 1075. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the high end and I'm going to trade that, and I'm going to short the stock. Usually I go bullish, which is what the current markets are doing, but in this case I want to run it as a short trade. So I'm going to click on T there for trade, and I'm going to start, and we'll do this one. We'll do short, and that's not supposed to happen, but it does. So let's go right into it. So we're going to do 10 of these, and we can look at the target price here. So you'll see the difference currently is like minus 4.99%. The ATR is 51.76, and my range based on the stock prediction is at, what was that, 56.63. That's my difference in price, so that's the actual buying price minus my price, and we look at the ATR, which is the average true range of the stock. So I'm gonna increase this a little bit and see if we can bring that down a little bit. So now we can see mine is at, what is that? It's quite close. So let's change this and make this 1085. Oops. So now we're well below there, so we can see that our ATR, my range is at 46.98. It's below the ATR of the stock, which means it's fairly reasonable. It's a reasonable margin. The potential profit here is $470. That's not all that much, but we're gonna reduce our risk on this one a little bit. Now let's just make sure that the so we've got our stop loss as R and our profit usually at about 2R, or anywhere between 1.5 and 3 really. But let's see where we are now. So we've won 4.15% here and we're on 2.51% here. Potential profit of $470 and a potential loss of 283, almost $284, I guess. That is okay. Let's reduce this a little bit. So let's say this is the stop loss, right? So we're currently at a price of 1,131. So let's change this to 1,125 is where we want to cut that off. So if we get to that level, then we know that the I mean we want to raise this. Sorry, I'm being an idiot here. So let's raise this to 40. Right, 1,140. If we hit that, it means that we're up 0.7%, but then we'll cut our losses, which means we can lose $80, or if this continues to drop, which everything suggests it will, we hopefully get that profit by doing going short on this one. So let me just double check all my values here. 1085, so that's that, all good. All right, let's record this trade. So I'm going to hit record and hopefully nothing crashes. Yes, we want to add this as a new trade, and there we go. So we've gone in, the quantity is -10 because we're going in for a short trade, and we can see here our target profit and stop loss has been recorded, and I've got this cool little button that if we hit it, it brings it back up and we can make adjustments and update that if we need to, and we can automatically calculate stuff here as well based on some settings that we've set up over here. So a whole bunch of new stuff that I brought into the software. It's currently at a pre-release version. It installs a lot faster now, and we fixed a lot of bugs, and the resolution is better. So if you want to try it, just add a comment, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ask away, and I'll make it available. Alright, I'm going to run through the other stocks like I mentioned before, and I'll let you know once all of those are done what they look like and which ones I've decided to buy, which ones are the top stocks for this first week in January. Alright, see you soon. Okie dokie, found one here that looks promising. So I've been running through this whole list now. Shopify, we went short. Autodesk looked good, but if I look at the candles, you can see that it's very close to a resistance level that's been tested multiple times, and it seems that it's struggling to break through, which doesn't mean it can't. It just means that it's less likely to, right? And we are working with the law of averages here, and odds are important. So the next one here, Beam Therapeutics, it's healthcare. It's not the most trending industry at this stage, but it still is a strong industry. So Beam Therapeutics, if we look at the indicators, let's have a quick peek. We can see that there is a resistance way above at the top. So there's a lot of margin here for, or potential for growth, or some profits. We can see on the 31st, which was here, it picked up a bearish pattern, which doesn't mean it's going to go bearish, but it is a pattern that has been picked up called double top. We can see on the stochastics, it's below that bottom line, but it hasn't turned up yet. But before that, we can see that it's actually been trending above this overbought line quite a bit, right? So it's been doing really well. It had a quick drop down. I think this is where investors took some profit, and then fairly quickly jumped back up again to that top level and bounced off there again. So really strong trending, and we can see that from the ADX here at the bottom as well. On the MACD, big gap, blue above red, going strong. Everything is looking real good. We can see a bit of a turnaround there on the drop on the RSI, which indicates, to me, all things indicate that this might pop back up. So if we look at the stock prediction, It tells us on a low range $91.66 and on the high end $94.92. So I always take the lowest one as my target price. So when I hit this button, it'll open up my trade window, but it will then use that price. Instead of calculating it automatically, it will use the price that the prediction engine came up with as my target price. Now, that doesn't mean we just settle for that, right? We still need to apply some logic here and thinking. Now, the first thing is the machine learning algorithm should be treated as an indicator itself, right? And it should not be the sole indicator. It should be read in conjunction with the candles, candle patterns, the EMAs, the SMAs, the MACD, the stochastics, the ATR, the RSI, all of that. So when all of those things point towards a potential win, then the odds are better, and that's what I'm trying to achieve here. Sometimes when I'm not quite sure, it might be a swing vote, then I'll run the stock prediction and then base my decision off of that as the swing vote. But then in other cases, I want all of those boxes to be checked. The more of those indicators we've got lined up, and the more of those boxes we've got checked, the better our odds. Okay, so ATR here is 8.5 minus at about $10, so I'm going to drop this down a bit. Let's put this at $89, and that sets us nicely within the ATR range, which means it's easily achievable. And let's make sure that our stop loss is not too high, because then it means it might drop a bit and go up and down during the day, and if it hits that stop loss before it actually potentially reaches that target price, then we lose money because the trade would have been closed. So we are currently at 2.04 where the ATR is 8.5. It's a difference of minus 2.5% for R, and our difference is 9% on the profit. So I think we should drop this a little bit. In fact, I'm going to set this down to 78.5. Okay, that I think is going to be a bit better. It gives a bit more margin to work with. We'll see there's a potential loss of $436, but a potential profit of $1,022, which is good. So let's add that trade. You also notice at the top here and in the trading dialogues, I've added information apart from just the current price. It will now also show you the current bidding if it's active, or whatever the last one was, and the current ask price, and then the days range. So we can see the last time this was running on the 31st, we had a range between 80.17 and 84.28. So that kind of gives you an idea again of that particular day's range. All right, I'm going to do the rest, and I'll be back again once I've summarized my top stocks. Okie dokie, I've run through all of these. It took a bit of time. They were a lot. As you can see, it's getting a little bit darker here. It's 10 past 8 in the PM on today here, 2nd of January. So this is my top stock. These are my top stocks for tomorrow, the 3rd of January. You get this ahead of time. I'm doing all the homework and I'm sharing that with you. Of course, this is using my trading strategy, as I've mentioned before. And what have we got here? So Shopify, I went short on. We looked at the prediction algorithm, and we look at the stocks, and I decided to go short on this one. You can see here's my target profit at $1,085 going short, and my stop loss at $1,140. If we look at the other ones here, and I'm not going to run through each one individually, but I'll just kind of show you what I'm looking for in these stocks so you know why I've decided to go for them. If we just quickly look at the technical indicators on this one, which is Beam, we can see there is a resistance level, but it's more or less at 100 here, right? So we're way below that. We can see there was a good bullish trend there, and then snapping back a little bit, which usually happens to that EMA 18. So that's all good. There was a bit of a dip, but it means we could very potentially have, or very probably have a nice bounce back up again. From the built-in pattern detections or detector, it's detected a double top, which it says is bearish. It doesn't mean it's going to do that. It just says it might, based on past, based on candle patterns. If we look at the trend, it's very strong. So the ADX is very high. It's very strong. That's good. ADX is a very good indicator. It is below the 30 line on the stochastics, and it hasn't made the turn back yet, but this can happen very quickly, right? This within a day we can see this turnaround come back all the way up here again. So you don't want to always wait for it to cross over. It's ideal if it does, and if you do, and if you can, but it's not always possible. So if it looks like a good trade, it looks like it's moving fast. You can see the distance here from one dip to the next below the 30, and it's these are 5-day intervals, so we can see it's about 5 days from bottom to top, right? Which means if we're here within the next day, we could already be at a level here of at least 40, right? So we want to jump in early. Anyway, that's my thinking. Looking good on the MACD, very bullish. Blue is above red. It doesn't look like there's any imminent intersections in the near future. It doesn't mean it can't happen. It just doesn't look like it's very likely to happen, right? Then we can see also the volatility on the average true range has been picking up, which means there's a lot more happening. And we can also see that on the RSI, we've got a good trend. It was trending here above this 170 level here for quite a bit, all the way up here to about 90, and it's just below 70, but it looks like it's turning back up again. So all of these things looking really, really good. Now, if I do the stock prediction, the first thing I like to do is to just check that the market price and the current price is still the same, because there might have been some post-market actions and adjustments and stuff. If it has changed, then I would click on this button to get me the current market price, but this is current, so it's all good. The A and the B here is whether I want to select the current ask price to see how that affects the machine learning algorithm, or I can enter there the current bid price. If I leave it as it is, it'll run what I've currently got. Okay, so now it's going to run 10 iterations, and as I mentioned before, it's taking the open price, it's looking at the previous day close price, it's looking at highs and lows, it's looking at stochastics, it's looking at MACD. I've ran many combinations and tried to see which machine learning models works the best. I had a list of about 30 different combinations that I've tried, different stochastics, different MACD, K values and smoothing values that I've entered to try and see what happens, look back periods. So I came up with a model that works best for me and is most realistic and accurate based on testing on past trades, and I'm quite happy with the results it's giving me at the moment. I forgot to mention earlier, I've also made a good profit here on Pinduoduo, which was another one that the stock predictor came up with, and spot on it was. Okay, so we've got a predicted close here at the low end, 92.61, and the predicted high end. From here, this is my final indicator, right? So from here, I would click on the trade, and I would then, I've already done this, so I'm not going to add it again, but just to show you. And then I would look at the ATR. That's the first thing. So, all right, it's predicted 92.61, which is very possible, to achieve, but I'd like to minimize the risk, so I'm going to drop this a little bit so that I'm within that ATR. So currently we have a potential profit of 1,524 and a potential loss of 283.7. So let's see, if the ATR is 8.5 and mine is 10.97, we just want to drop this a little bit so that we're somewhere within that reasonable range, right? So if I drop that to 90 about, or whatever I did here, let's see, which one is this? This is Beam. So on Beam, you can see I put it at 89, right? Even a little bit less. Easier to achieve. And the reason I did that was I also look at the, is it worth the profit? So if we can make $1,022.90 in a single trade within a day or two, that's good business, right? So instead of trying to push to the absolute maximum of profits, we go for a more reasonable, much more achievable profit, which means that we reduce the risk once again, and we look at the value. Is it worth it or not? There's a couple of stocks that were on my watch list that I removed. It looked like there was some potential for profit, but the reward was not high enough, so I decided not to go for it because we might still lose on them, right? And then it's not worth it. Okie dokie. So short list. We spoke about Shopify. We've got Beam Therapeutics. All of these going long, only Shopify going short. You can look at the target price and the stop losses here on the screen if you want. Don't just duplicate what I do. I might be losing here. We don't know yet. You'll see currently it shows negative values here on the balance, and that's just because it looks at the closing price. I can hit that current button and that shouldn't happen. And then it'll run through and it will get us the current market price, unless I've got a bug, which it seems I do. I'll fix that. But that's pretty much the long and short of it. So we've got Beam, we've got Blink Charging Company, consumer durables, we've got CRISPR Therapeutics, we've got Editas Medicine, and we've got Faith Therapeutics, Intelia Therapeutics, and Renewable Energy Group, REGI. I've made some good profit of them in the past, and I went back and to go and look at those trades. So here's my historical stock trades, and we can see this is the opening conditions. So it was very strong indicators on buy from the sentiment, online sentiment, right? No current patterns on that specific time, but that's all fine. And we can see that we've already had a very bullish candle here on the previous day. And then we can see we weren't at the bottom of the stochastics, but this was going and trending quite well. If we look at the closing trade, right? So opening trade was here on the 11th, right? And the closing trade was on the 14th, right? So that's 3 days, which is not bad. And if we look at the conditions here, we can see that, oh, sorry, no, it wasn't 3 days. It was one trade day, actually, because it was over a weekend. But oh, sorry, that went from the 14th to the 15th. There we go. So we bought on the 14th and we sold on the 15th. So this must have been the Friday prior. Okay, and then I bought on the Monday, sold on the Tuesday. So we can see here that what the conditions were, and I can see that there was 4.4% win made on this one. So I took that into consideration when making the new trade. Again, let's look at that. If we look at the current open trade, we'll see that here we bought in, and if I look at my target price and stop loss, we can see that we've set that currently at 5.63%, a little bit higher than the previous time when we had good success, but still reasonable, still within the ATR, and I think those could be good potential wins. I need to fix a bug that doesn't update my current market prices, but it should all be on 0 at the moment, and after tomorrow, of course, we'll see some changes there, and then I'll be back and we'll talk about what happened and what's going to happen, and we'll look at top stocks again. Thank you for watching. Remember, trading is dangerous, it's risky. Make sure you do your own research as well. I've got a link at the bottom below for Adam Koo, whom I based my trading strategies off of. I've modified and customized it and add some things to it, and I developed this platform around my modified theory from Adam Koo. But there's a link to that. I encourage you to watch it. Also look at Zip Trader. I don't trade using fundamentals, but I did build in a fundamental tool here which gives you some information on current stocks, so you can set dates here and it will scrape a bunch of websites and extract information from it, giving you the highlights, and you can click on it to view in detail, and it will give you some market sentiment using online data and a bunch of other stuff. So Zip Trader is, I'd recommend that, good to watch, but again, don't just watch a YouTube video on someone telling you which stocks to buy and then blindly going out and buying them. This should be a good starting point for you. I do a lot of homework. I run a stock finder and I get a summary of potential stocks that I want to look at that meets certain criteria. Once I've added those into my watch list, I start going through them and inspecting them individually, looking at the technical indicators. If those check out, my final test is doing the machine learning prediction. So if everything looks great here, only then will I run a machine learning prediction, and once that gives me an indication of where stocks are going, then I would buy the stock. I've been testing my machine learning algorithm on a couple of trades since the last time we spoke last year, and I think it's fairly spot on, or at least in very close ballpark. So I'm betting on that, and that's my strategy. Guys, please subscribe, like, follow, share, all that stuff, and have a great day. I'll see you guys again. Cheers.
I like it.